Hey guys, how you doing? Gabe Suarez here. I want to address something today. It's been a question that's come up a number of times on my forum, Warrior Talk, and then on email, and that is what martial art would be best for someone to start with. The question came about because much of our work developing pistol kata to enhance our training skills. And we look at the study of gunfighting much in the way that we look at the study of hand to hand. Most of our staff have extensive backgrounds in the martial arts. Myself, I've got many years studying Kyokushin karate as well as other systems. Many of our other staff, John Payne, for example, has a very lengthy background in martial arts, most recently Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Brian Yamamoto, of course, he's got a very strong background in karate. Eric Toll is judo. And so, it's a very broad group with extensive and deep backgrounds in martial arts. That's what allows us to teach at the level that we do and to develop material at the level that we do. And it makes us better at not only executing but also delivering that information. So I want to give you guys a little bit of a guideline as to where to start. I think it's important that every man and woman know how to fight with their hands today. It's really important. In the gun world, you have this mentality that I carry a gun so I don't have to fight. Yeah, I got it. I understand the mentality behind it. But you know what? The reality is that there are many fights that are better handled with your hands if you're capable. And whether you like it or not, there are many fights that will begin in a way that they have to be handled with your hands before you even consider going to the pistol. So you may as well have something there to check off the box. Okay? So here's my guidelines for you to hopefully find a place to begin training and check off that box in your resume as far as hand-to-hand ability. Okay? What is the best school? You know, that is an impossible question to answer. There are very capable karate instructors, and there are very poor karate instructors. Same thing can be said for jiu-jitsu. Same thing can be said for boxing, for MMA, for whatever is out there. So here's where we begin. Start with a school that's close to you. If it's close to you, you're more likely to attend. If you have to travel 2 hours one way to get to it, probably not going to be a very frequent thing throughout the week. All right. If you live in any type of urban area, you're probably going to have a number of schools to choose from. So you go and you look and you see if the rest of these attributes that I'm going to discuss are in place. If they are, it might be a place to take a closer look. If they're not, then maybe you need to find a different place. Okay. The second thing is it's got to be repeatable adult education. Okay. The old way of teaching in martial arts is modeling. That means that the instructor stands up and he physically shows you what he wants you to do. You don't get to ask too many questions. You just follow along as best you can. And then eventually, someday, he'll tell you what it is that you're doing and why. That is the way that the GIs that brought martial arts to the U.S. after World War II, that's the way they were taught. It was a necessity because of a language barrier. They didn't speak Okinawan, and the Okinawan masters didn't speak English. So that was the best they could do. Today, that's not going to work. Adults need to understand the why behind the methods. The context must be taught along with the method itself. You can't just, here, follow along and do this, and then, okay, that's it. Do that 100 times, and then we'll discuss. No. The method, the method and the context must be taught at the same time. The why needs to be understood by adult students today. The method must be trainable alone as well as with a partner. Now, look, there are people that will tell you that the system has to be done full contact. Yes, I understand. I agree. But you will not be doing full contact all the time. I'll answer that a little bit more in depth in the next point. It needs to be trainable alone and with a partner and at varying degrees of intensity. the method of training must be supportive of the adult population and not so extreme that it injures you every time you show up for training. And you know, instructors today work for you. The old notion that the instructor is the master and stuff like, you know, you wouldn't take your car to a mechanic and say, my master says that I must change my oil. No. You know what? The mechanic works for you, the attorney works for you, the accountant, even the doctor works for you. Same thing with a karate instructor or whatever instructor. And if they are professionals, they will understand that. And they will be articulate, and they will be able to explain the why, and they will be able to treat you like an adult, and they will be personable. We've all trained with instructors that are total assholes. You don't want to train with somebody like that. Okay? So, repeatable adult education. The next thing is important here because, you know, we all want to train hard, but we've got to be able to go back to work on Monday. Okay? You can't ignore nature. You will break sooner rather than later. Now, look, I started full contact Kyokushin karate when I was about 10 years old. Okay? At 12, in front of, and much to the horror of my spectator mother, had my nose splattered by a knee. Okay? You know, Kyokushin karate, the way we trained it back then was physically brutal. By the time I reached black belt at 16, I had a broken nose, a couple of broken fingers, broken toes, and several broken ribs. You know, it was normal, and I got very comfortable in receiving and delivering punishment, and I wasn't afraid of it. Look, you're not going to get there in 6 months of cardio kickboxing, okay? I've carried that Kyokushin programming into my later life, and although I wouldn't want to step into a ring with anybody today, I could say that I'm very confident that I could win a fight right now if I had to get up and fight because of that programming, okay? But there's a price for that, and it's not going to happen with low dedication, light training. On the other hand, you cannot be so intense in the training that you forget that you are 35, 40, 50, or whatever, because if you train like a 25-year-old UFC fighter today, you will break, and then now you're down for 6 months and you're not really becoming a better fighter when you're recovering, okay? So, you know, like our good friend and brother, John Chambers used to say, there's a fine line between hard and retard. It's important, especially as we get older, that we stay on the correct side of that line. Okay. The next point: martial training is not a substitute for fitness and strength. We see guys enroll in these schools with the idea that, hey, you know, I'm going to get in shape and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Look, you enroll in a martial arts school because you want to get better at delivering violence. If your objective is just to get in shape, understand that you're going to be giving up some of your practice time for exercise, and it's not the same thing. Look, physical fitness is extremely important, okay? The myth of the feeble, unfit guy beating up a gang of 20, that's a myth, okay? You need to be physically strong, you need to be physically fit, you need to be able physically to deliver whatever your mind asks of your body, okay? You know, being able to physically pick up another man against his will and throw him off a roof, that makes up for a lot of technical flaws, okay? None of the founders of karate were weak or feeble, nor the American GIs that brought it to the U.S. So taking up combat training time in order to lose weight or something like that, I think is a mistake. That is stuff that you would best be advised to do on your own, okay? The next point: avoid sporting focus, all right? Now, this is a very controversial thing because, you know, sports are fun and all this sort of thing. But look, all martial systems that became focused on sports eventually become useless on the battlefield. You know, take Olympic fencing, for example. A few years ago, I studied Olympic fencing with my son. Basically, epee, which is well, I could get very deep in the weeds explaining it, but it's probably the most free and combat based fencing aspect. Okay, my son was very good. He became a nationally ranked epee fencer. Actually, went to the Junior Olympics. When I fenced, it looked more like Conan the Barbarian rather than Errol Flynn, but that's another story. The problem is when you're taking this undertaking this study because you want to get better at fighting, not just at playing the game. The problem is that sometimes the sport gives a system its identity. That's where it gets its credibility, its reason for existing. And as such, the rules become the focus. The legal methods become the norm, and the most practiced methods and outlawed methods are forgotten. They're not trained anymore. Okay, in the sports arena, you're going to face an equally skilled and sized opponent. The goal is to win points, not to physically injure the other man. Okay, an example: there is a karate system that is it's a full contact system, and it gets its identity from the sporting aspect. Now the problem is that in that sporting aspect, the sporting side of the system, it is full contact everything, except that there are no hand strikes allowed to the head. Okay, now. The problem is, in my experience on the street, the vast majority of physical attacks are going to be physical attacks to the head by the hands. Okay, and so what happens is the sport becomes the focus. The sport overtakes any combat application because the sport is more fun. The sport is where the system gets its identity and everything else. Well, we can't punch to the head in the sport, so you know what? We're not going to train punching to the head very much. And great, we're full contact. We kick and all this kind of stuff. Full contact. We can kick to the head, full contact, and all that, but we can't punch to the head, full contact. Now you take the student, you put him out in the street, and he goes up against some thug. What's the first thing the thug's going to do? Boom, punch him right in the head. Okay, and you know what? Sorry. So that's a problem. So that's look. You can join one of these organizations for the sport aspect, and that's fantastic. But the reality is this: you cannot chase two dogs and catch either one. The more focused you become on sport, the less focus you're going to put in combat. That is a reality. There are very, very few people on earth that can do both equally well. If that's you, fantastic. Forget everything I said and go do what you want to do. But in my experience, sport focus takes away from street focus. If that's what you're there for, fantastic. Carry on. But if it's not, avoid sport focus systems. Okay? The next thing, avoid philosophy and spiritualism. Okay? Look, if I want to be spiritual, I'm going to crack open the New Testament. Okay? I don't go to a karate school to be spiritual. I go to a karate school to learn how to deliver violence on other men. I don't want any value judgments. I don't want to be told about perfecting my character or finding my center or any of that stuff. I call that sort of thing hippie martial arts. Okay? It all comes, I think, from the term that we apply to this. Martial art. I hate the art part. Art attracts artists and peaceniks. Now, these aren't bad people, but you know what? Normally these guys are not violent capable, and they have other focuses in life. And what happens is that when we allow a martial system to become so focused on philosophy and spiritualism, you get stuff like peaceful warriors, navel gazers, and all manner of rice paper walking and pseudo spiritualism, instead of the fighting skills that you're paying the instructor to teach you. Okay, look, if that's what you want, go ahead, but it's not going to make you better at the skill of physical violence. Okay, which is what we are kind of here to do in the first place. Okay, all right. The last thing, culture should not be the focus of the exercise. Okay? Now look, if you go to a Thai restaurant, there are going to be plates on the menu that have Thai names. Why? Well, because it's a Thai restaurant. You go to a Mexican food restaurant, it's going to be the same thing. There's going to be food there in Spanish. Okay? So, look, every martial art that you go and study is going to have a culture associated with it. If you go to learn Japanese karate, there's going to be Japanese terms. If you go and study French savate, which is basically French kickboxing, you will learn French words. Okay, it's not a big deal. Don't make too much of it. In fact, it's kind of cool, but that shouldn't be the focus of the exercise. And in some schools, that's what happens. Is it becomes more a focus of let's learn this new and strange culture, and not so much the focus about fighting. Okay. So yeah, the additional cultural stuff, it's fun, it's kind of an interesting thing, and everything else, but it shouldn't be the focus. All right. Well, I guess one last thing is, look at the instructor. Okay. If you look at all of the original founders of the various martial arts systems, these dudes were not fat, feeble, and slovenly. Okay, they were all very fit, very strong, even into their later years. Even the GIs that studied with them in Asia and then brought the stuff over to the U.S. They were all very fit, very physical guys. If he looks more like a Pillsbury Doughboy rather than a cage fighter, he doesn't look physically strong. He doesn't look like he is able to do everything that he is teaching you to do. Okay, I would look elsewhere. Now, there's exceptions. All right, you got some instructor that is very skilled, very capable, but the dude's 80 years old. Okay, you know what? You have to make concessions for age. Okay, no one's going to be fit and fit. The way they were at 25 when they're 90. Okay, it's not going to happen. The same thing is maybe the guy was injured or what have you. So you make concessions for that, but you got a guy that doesn't have a slew of injuries, received in combat or whatever, and he's not 80 years old and stuff like that, but he's still, he looks like some muffin top guy that, should be at Weight Watchers rather than the teaching karate. Probably not the guy that you want teaching you. Okay, now. I don't know. I'm probably going to get all kinds of challenges to death matches, and the ninjas are going to show up in my house tonight with little blow darts and whatnot to take me out because I've, I don't know, offended the whatever. But you know what? Listen, I'm very serious about this stuff. Your fighting skills need to be complete. Part of that should be training in some sort of martial system. If you follow these guidelines, you're probably going to find a good system. Something that is going to be focused on making you a better fighter, not something focused on these other side issues that have no bearing in anything. Okay? So anyway, that's it. Go train, and hopefully we'll train together soon.